Welcome. My name is Diane Proctor. I'm the chair of the League of Women Voters Town Government Committee, and this is a public service for citizens of Concord and for the board of the League to help us determine our support, our positions on various warrant articles for the town meeting that's going to take place on April 30th and perhaps move over until May 1st. The end of this month and the beginning of the next month. So welcome to this discussion. It's the first of two. Today we'll be covering articles 10, 22 for those of you who have a scorecard or your wonderful town warrant sitting in front of you, which looks like this. And if you don't have it, this might be a good time to go and get it. So we are going to be covering this morning Articles 10, 22, and 37 initially, which are citizen petitions. Then Article 21, which deals with the Concord Light Plant Solar Enterprise Fund, expansion. And then we'll be dealing with the public school budgets. And we have some wonderful experts to join us this morning, and I will introduce each of them as we begin the discussion. Is Josh Lee with us yet? Does anyone know?
He is not.
He is not. Okay. So we're going to begin with Article 10, and Nancy Brown is going to present that for us in lieu of Josh. If he appears in the middle of this meeting at some point, we'll paste him in and ask him for any thoughts that he has. And then if not, we'll try to find a way but we'll talk with him and figure out how best to support it. The Article 10 is the discussion, is the DEI discussion. And let me just quickly, and you will recall that this meeting may not be used in part by anyone, but it can be in full. And so that's terrific. Carlin Reed will be monitoring, as she always does ably, the chat box. So that will be a huge help. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand or you can put them in the chat box. Article 10 is called the Citizen Petition DEI. It is being formally moved by Tanya Bartavian, but in fact, it is being supported by the larger DEI committee. Nancy Brown, take it away. Well, you're muted, Nancy, so we can't hear you.
Tanya is actually here, so
oh, good.
She might be the appropriate person to help present this in Josh's absence.
So why don't the two of you, and I will step off for a minute and let you and Tanya cover it.
Nancy, since you were so you had so much to do with the presentation of the slides, I will just make a introductory statement and ask you to continue with the details that are on the slides.
Are the slides available?
No, not to me. I mean, no, we were expecting Josh to be here and this doesn't work.
Okay,
anyway,
I wish you would present the essence, please, of the
I will, Diane.
The essence of the warrant article, and then I will read to you what the select board statement is. Okay.
Oh, yes. Well, I didn't know there was already a statement from the select board on this. Because anyway,
go ahead.
The motion has been altered a little bit. It's going to request that it's going to ask town meeting to urge the select board to collaborate, to prioritize collaborations with the DEI Commission towards the hiring of a full-time DEI director. The trajectory of this is that during their, I think, December meeting, I was attending the DEI Commission's meeting, and there was a frustration expressed about not having their needs met in a timely manner, and I suggested that a citizen petition article might be the way to bring the subject up to the town's attention and perhaps make progress on this. And since then, I have learned that the commission members really would like a DEI director, and they are going to disclosed their extensive survey results on April 11th. For this, to me, DEI is a very personal issue because I grew up in a country where I was a second-class citizen and silenced minority member. So I feel the issues in my bones all my life. And I want to support this effort for that reason.
Thank you.
And Nancy can take over. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know what the select board has said, but I know that Tanya and the commission has worked with the select board to come up with something that we hope they will support. This is obviously doesn't commit anyone to anything specific. The DEI commission got more funding this year.
Let's go backwards for people who don't know. The actual article reads, to determine whether the town will urge the select board to ask the town manager to expedite the hiring of a full-time director of diversity, equity, and inclusion as requested by the DEI commission, or take any other action relative thereto. Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay.
Sorry, but the motion is not going to be that. The motion has been changed to what I just said.
Well, okay.
So that's and that is not an amendment. That is a new motion that will hopefully be approved by town council.
Okay, well, we don't have access to that right now. So go ahead, Nancy.
The intent is to keep us moving. Ultimately, for the DEI commission to be effective, it needs to have much more support than it currently has. And most of when we look to other commissions that are doing great work, they typically have a full-time or part-time director. We want to move in that direction. We recognize that this is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's not in the current budget, but we would hope that as the town prepares the next budget, they will give consideration to that. So this is designed to demonstrate support for moving in that direction. It doesn't commit the select board or anybody else to actually fund a DEI director. And one of the things that has happened is the DEI commission has taken an extensive survey of town residents, and I haven't seen the results of that, but that may give us more impetus to move in this direction. So
so you would describe it as an incentive, a nudge.
Exactly. A nudge is a perfect word.
Okay, a nudge. Thank you.
I like that
so much. So we'd like to entertain questions that anyone has. If you raise your hand, you'll appear, and you all know how to do that by now. Go down to reactions, and then I'm going to do it so you can see. Raise your hand, and then when you're finished, please lower your hand or put your questions in the chat box, and Carlin will be monitoring that. Carlin Reed. So who has questions? And let's see if there are any.
Okay, it's Carlin. I just put one in because I'd like Tanya, if you don't mind, to repeat the new version of Article 10. Thank you.
I will, yes. It is to ask the town to urge the select board.
now.
I'm sorry.
Wait, excuse me, Nancy Brown, can you mute yourself, hon? Okay, go ahead, Tanya.
To urge the select board to prioritize collaboration with the DEI commission towards the hiring of a full-time DEI director. I will look it up in my email and post it in the chat. I want to add that this is, I also see this as an equity issue. In other words, we have many issues in town to tend to, but DEI is a under examined very important social issue, and therefore it needs to be prioritized, and the DEI commission's needs need to be prioritized. I will put the text in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clearly, there's been more discussion between the select board and DEI than there is public knowledge. Nancy, go ahead.
I'm trying to send the link again to Josh. He's now available.
Okay, terrific. In their last discussion, public discussion that was available to the public, Matt Johnson said that he said, quote, "There is already $75,000 allocated in the budget to hire a consultant to perform similar work and also aid the town in taking its next steps toward hiring a DEI director." Matt Johnson continued, and he's the chair of the select board, for those who may not know, continued that the town should consider a regional position for the DEI director, which has worked well for the Regional Housing Services Office. Matt Johnson suggested that the board present an amendment on the floor at town meeting and report its recommendation to the article then. So that this is still in as far as the public is concerned, still under discussion between the select board. We have Peggy Briggs here from FinCom. Peggy, did your committee take a position on this particular article?
Thank you, Diane. No, we did not. This was on the select board hearing agenda. And this is going to come up, I think, on a couple of other issues, personnel, etc. Our purview is the total budget, not how it gets spent, and not the policies within it. We are clearly focused on FTE, full-time equivalent employees going forward, and cost management. But once that number has been approved, it's really up to the town manager and the board select board. So no, that was not on our list of review articles.
Thank you, Peggy. I didn't think so, but it's important for the public to know that.
Yes, thank you.
Tanya has just put the motion in the chat box, and we have a couple more minutes, Tanya. So if you would read it, it would be terrific.
Mr. Lee moves, because he's expected to be the presenter. Mr. Lee moves that the town urge the select board to prioritize collaboration with the DEI Commission towards hiring a full-time DEI director. By the way, the town moderator has advised me that as the official sponsor of the article, I can change the motion. Other, people can't change it without my approval.
Thank you.
In terms of, in other words, what I want to say is that the select board has suggested an amendment, but changing the motion according to what they are saying has not been an official option in terms of just changing the motion.
I can only report the most recent public discussion, right? We have a question, Ellen Quackenbush.
So I put this in the chat too, but I know Matt talked about a regional solution, and just whoever is knowledgeable about DEI in town, and I'd love to know the survey results, but of course we have to wait for that. What are there specific aspects of the DEI environment in Concord that makes a regional solution sub not appropriate?
It's a wonderful question.
And I'll take a stab at it.
Thank you.
I think it would be premature to say that's not possible, but I think each town has very specific issues and needs, and they could get lost if you have a regional approach. Different towns are at different steps in terms of where they are in instituting DEI matters. We're a little behind because we didn't form a commission as early as some other towns. And I will say, I think it's taken the commission a bit of time to get going, to coalesce and start doing things, which they are doing now. The survey will be very instructive, and we should have the results on, I believe it's the 11th.
You said right. Well, this is very helpful. And because we're meeting again on the 13th of April, which is our second warrant review, if there are, we will invite the DEI folks to come in and just simply inform us briefly about the results of that survey.
That's a wonderful opportunity.
Okay. Anne, I see Anne Rarick's hand.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you know that we're going to do a forum on the 19th, not the 11th.
Well, the 11th is when the DEI commission meets. And
They prepare for the forum.
yes,
All right. Well, then we have a slightly contradictory sentence.
Not contradictory.
No,
On the 11th, nothing contradictory. On the 11th, the DEI Commission has a regular meeting. On the 19th, they are going to present a public forum by Zoom on this article with the collaboration of the League of Women Voters DEI Committee. So there are two meetings, nothing contradictory.
and I think the by the 11th, after the survey results have been publicized, we could come back and share that with you.
Right. That's terrific. And I just wanted to say Anne Rarick is also on the commission and is or at least if she's not on the commission, she's been a presence on the League of Women Voters DEI committee. In fact, all three women on this call right now have been, and each of them has played a significant role. Thank you very much. Okay, moving forward, I believe is Josh here? Did I see?
I'm here. Yes,
Oh.
I am.
Hi, Josh.
Sorry to be so late.
That's okay. We know you're also at work. So just to summarize, Josh, I think you're coming in under the name Nancy Brown. So that's so that's fine.
Doesn't look like Nancy Brown.
No, it doesn't quite look like Nancy Brown. So Josh, what we're saying is that we know what the article is. We've entertained questions. We had one very good question in response to the select board suggestion by Matt Johnson that there be a regional appointment rather than one specifically for Concord. Nancy Brown has discussed that, very intelligently, suggesting that may not serve Concord well. Do you have any comments about that briefly before we move on to the next citizen petition?
No, just that I think the idea of a regional position is a bit of a strange one for this particular role. We don't see any precedent for that in any other town, and the commission strongly believes there's more than enough work to do right in our community for a full-time dedicated person. Perhaps over time it might evolve, and we can think about regionalization, but I think it would be a very poor way to start our DEI journey that we need to go on.
Thank you, Josh, so much. We see another question. Jimmy Two Feathers. Hello, Jimmy.
Hello. I'm a member of the DEI Commission, and also I just wanted to add an information. Yes, Concord is behind. Like for instance, in terms of talking about a regional director, you have to mitigate that with, like, the town of Acton already has their DEI director, and there's other towns around that already have. So. Is that going to be a council? Is that going to be represented by one person? That's a whole nother layer of work that we're not really at yet. Done. Thank you.
Thank you. This is also very helpful. Tanya, you have one last comment quickly?
Yes, I would like to add that I think for us in Concord, considering a DEI, a regional DEI director at this point will simply delay our actually focusing on the issues that we have in a concentrated way and moving towards taking care of our own issues first. And I also want to point out that it wasn't the select board that discussed the regional director. It's just something Mr. Johnson has repeated in forums, but that it has only stayed as far as his opinion, as far as I have observed.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. Thank you all. And Josh and Nancy, as you get as the report comes in, we could scoot you in on the 13th for a minute to share the results of that report. And Jimmy, thank you for your comments. Okay, on to the next item, the next citizen petition. This is brought to us by Dean Banfield. And we also have Brian Folks who knows a great deal about all of this. And so Let's begin. This is Article number 22 in your book, if you're following along. And Article number 22 cannot be read in brief, but a summary might be possible. So Dean, would you like to summarize your article for us, and then we'll go forward from there?
Sure. Hold on one second here. To summarize it in brief, the idea behind Article 22 is to sort of develop a structure where the town can begin to deploy solar panels on various opportunities within the town's area of control. This involves school properties, open town land, brownfields areas, places where the town has the right to develop and put up solar panels, and have that done by the light plant. I was here last year for the same purpose, asking the light plant to develop a plan for doing this. And the light plant is, admittedly, got a lot of things on its plate, and this has been difficult to bubble to the top. And so maybe helping them by offloading this to a citizen commission with the light plant having a member at the table can help energize the town to develop a plan for deploying solar throughout the community. So that's the gist of it. And I have a small presentation, which most of which was given at the hearing. If I can share my screen, we can move on, if that's okay, Diane.
Absolutely, and I love your verb to energize the plant to do so.
No, we're trying to get something done here.
Yeah, I love fun in the middle of the morning.
Share my screen.
Okay, why don't you share your screen? Okay.
So here we go. We're going to share that. And then I'm going to try to put that in presentation mode. There we go. Okay, does everybody see a slide that says Article 22?
Yes, it's terrific. You've done well.
All right, thank you. All right, so basically, there we go. Why are we back at this again? Because I was in front of town meeting last year, brought an article that passed overwhelmingly that has the same fundamental purpose, and that is to get the town moving ahead again on the deployment of solar. We have a climate action goal for the community of 20 megawatts to deploy 20 megawatts by 2030. And it's 2023. And we did well. We got a great jump start and got 7.5 megawatts of solar developed by 2017, when we put up the solar arrays with some negotiation with Walden Woods over at the landfill. And then we built another large array on some brownfield area that was part of an area on the other side of town from W.R. Grace. But since 2017, we haven't done anything. We sort of stopped. And we still have plenty of land opportunities, parking lots, rooftops, et cetera, within the town to keep moving forward. And so last year, Article 38 urged the light plant to develop a plan to start taking advantage of those remaining opportunities. And we didn't really get anything done against that plan. Very little was accomplished against that plan. So I'm bringing this article to try and help offload some of that from the light plant, because they do have a number of priorities. Give them a seat at the table, so it's not like we're cutting them out of the loop. We're collaborating, but we're trying to give them some additional manpower and a little help to move this along. And so that's why we're moving it again. Trying to move to the next slide, and it's not going forward. Here we go. We'll try this. There we go.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Just to put a finer point on it, last month, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued a report called the AR6 report. It was a huge effort. Hundreds and hundreds of scientists contributed across a variety of disciplines to put out an 8,000-page report. And it is really pretty dire. They're saying that efforts required to halt warming at 1.5 degrees C will require the reductions you see on this screen not from some old level in 2007 or 2005, but from 2019 levels. We need to reduce our carbon emissions by 43% by 2030 if we're going to prevent warming going above 1.5 degrees, which is the point at which the IPCC believes that we will have irreversible problems that arise. Bill McKibben was just over at the CCHS, gave us a really impassioned talk. And one of the things he said was, we need to get out of our comfort zone. We just cannot continue to do small things. We all need to be out of our comfort zone. The UN Secretary General, borrowing from popular culture, said this report is a clarion call to massively fast-track climate efforts by every country and every sector on every time frame. Our world needs climate action on all fronts, everything, everywhere, all at once. That's what the UN Secretary General said about this report. So we're in a tough spot. And last year, the town meeting said, yeah, we really ought to do this. We ought to be doing this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but that was the answer last year, and we need to keep doing it. Okay. We need to align our energy with our own values. We are currently, as the light plant, purchasing outside solar from other places in the state and outside the state. So we're contracting in a place like Brookfield, Massachusetts. This specific set of arrays is a place where we are buying solar from, but we're not putting any on this parking lot right here in the middle of town where we could clearly put up something. We are buying wind power from these mountains in Maine. We have a contract with that, but we have nothing or no plans for anything on the surface of the Public Works Department, which has just gotten a new roof, and the roof was supposed to be being put in to be solar ready. So these are things that we need to be focused on. Our neighbors are finding a way, and we need to start finding a way ourselves. So what's the approach? We're going to put up a limited duration task force with 5 members. The CMLP director will be on it, a liaison from the new Climate Advisory Committee, 3 citizen appointees, and the Climate Advisory Committee will receive updates every 2 months so that we have an update and know where we're going with this planning. And then eventually the report will be delivered to the select board. The plan elements, I'll go through these very briefly. We need to find out where we can put it, how we can pay for it, what's preventing us from doing it in terms of technical issues, and how do we overcome some of those technical issues. And then it's pretty clear that to get to our 20 megawatt target, we might not have enough places to put it that are within the construct of the town's ownership. So we may need to develop a partnership process and at the same time balance our community priorities. But to go back to what Bill McKibben said, solar and wind are literally our only options at this point for developing new energy sources. And we are going to have to find a way to live with seeing them. We are going to have to be able to say, okay, maybe it isn't my first choice to drive past this large field filled with solar panels, but we need to do this in order to meet the goals that are right in front of us. So we are going to have to balance our priorities, but at the same time, we're going to have to, once again, get outside of our comfort zone. And so here are some of the benefits. If we develop solar energy locally, we save on certain charges that are charged by the larger New England grid. They don't have to charge us to send it to us through transmission. They don't have to charge us for building standby capacity that when it's a hot day, we need to draw more energy than usual. So we always have to pay something called capacity charges, which means that the grid has enough standby capability to meet the need on a very hot day. So we don't have to pay for that, or we reduce our payments for that. And we can enhance these benefits by adding battery storage. So these are the kinds of things that really benefit us from doing it locally. And so what is it going to mean? Right now at 7.5 megawatts, we're producing about 6% of our power portfolio. Bringing it up to 20 will get us up to only 14%. We're still going to have plenty of power that we need to purchase through purchasing agreements from all over New England or all over the country to get this brought in. So this is just a small slice, but we need to do our part. We got plenty of places to start. CMS, which we've been planning now for 2 years, is not going to be ready till 2025. Meanwhile, we have opportunities that could be built quickly on the BD, the CCHS parking lot, the downtown parking lot that I had in my photograph, on top of the Public Works Department. There are places where we do not need to collaborate with the development of a building in order to get ready to put some solar somewhere. We've got places to do it now, so we need to get started now. So
Thank
that's my talk, and I'm done.
Well, Dean, we hope you're not done, because this obviously is critical, and anyone who has heard or read the recent work by Bill McKibben, who has simply watched what's happening to our Arctic water, or lives near a shore and is watching the houses dip gracefully or ungracefully into the ocean, knows that there is an extraordinary urgency, not to mention the vitality of the various storms that we've all been experiencing. We want to see if we have questions for Dean, and we also want to say that Janet Miller has put in the chat box that the Climate Action Committee has voted in positive to support this particular article. Thank you, Janet. And we have Brian Foltz here, who is the chair of the Concord Municipal Light Plant Committee. And Brian, why don't we start with you for any responses that you might have?
Sure. I'm going to speak solely as as the chair of the light board. So I have my own personal views, but I don't want to, speak on others' behalf and have people, assume that. So what I can tell you is that the board has expressed support for this article, but concerns with the details, mostly about who's doing the oversight. This is something that the light plant and the light board know that we need to do and know that we're not doing, because it goes to the fundamental part of our business. So I think our board meeting comes up next week, and we'll have a firm position then, because we'll be able to take a vote. But right now, my prediction is that they'll be supportive of it, with some kind of statement with caveats. But I can't tell you what those are yet.
Well, those are it. Thank you, Brian, so much. Carlin, do we have any comments in the chat box before we turn to the general audience?
Yes, the question that I asked is a follow-up to Janet's note. The question is, why did the Climate Action Committee support this article? And I'm hoping Janet Miller can respond.
Janet, you're muted, so you have to unmute.
I realized. I think it's pretty obvious. It's it's climate action. We need to get more solar power, more wind power, and if this moves it forward, then we should do it.
And all the better. Now, Janet, you raised your hand. Do you have a question as well?
I just raised my hand so I would appear.
Good, terrific. All right. Are there questions in the general audience? Thank you, Janet, so much, and for the work you're doing. Okay, seeing none. Dean, thank you for your energy. I'll use that word.
Thank you, Diane. And thank you to the league for having this forum, because it's a good way to get the information out to the public.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the next item.
Diane, I need to interrupt. There was just one more question added just now. What's the text of Article 22? And I know that it's printed in the warrant. It's kind of long. I don't know how you handle that question.
If you want me to read it, I don't have my warrant. I got to go downstairs and get my warrant, which will only take me a minute. But
it's very long. So
it's pretty long.
Yeah,
it's laying out the elements of the report, which were in one of my slides, which says the slide that said plan elements, which if you go back and look at this video, you'll be able to see that slide. Those are the particular pieces of what we expect the report to cover. There are some very technical changes to the way that it'll be moved versus what you see in the warrant. In the warrant, it mentions the cab, which won't exist by the time we get to town meeting. So I'm going to be moving it that those references are going to refer to the cake, which is CAC, with the Climate Action Committee. There you go. So it's quite a healthy text. But you can see here that the Climate Action Advisory Board, CAB, is listed. That'll be the cake. There's another element of that, which is that it says that the CAB will present the final plan to the town. That sentence will be changed to say that the task force will present the final plan to the select board, because presenting to the town is too general. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Where does it get presented? And since the task force is the author, they will be the ones doing the presentation to the select board. So these technical changes are going to appear in the text when it gets moved. These were in consultation with the moderator and I guess with the town council. But there's one other piece of this which is actually somewhat important that's going to change. On the very first sentence, it says to see if the town will vote to urge the select board to create this thing. That is actually going to change in a fairly fundamental way. It will see if town meeting will establish the task force. Urging gives the select board options to not do it if they don't want, and the town meeting is able to just go ahead and establish the task force and then charge the select board with the appointment authority. So that is actually a somewhat significant change, and that is something that will change in the language by the time it arrives at town meeting.
Thank you so much, Dean. One of the wonderful things I think about the way Concord works is that in the public hearings, we discover those nuances that need tweaking,
Right.
and that's absolutely terrific. True. I'd like to report that the select board on item 22, I don't know what they've said, so never mind.
I can tell you that they have so far deferred any action on it pending the feedback that they get through the light board's voting process. The light board will, as Brian indicated, they'll be voting on it this Wednesday, and then the select board won't make the finance committee report, unfortunately, because their vote will be after that. But they're kind of waiting to see how the light board weighs in.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other comments or questions? Peggy?
Yes. First of all, you just answered my question, which was whether the select board had taken a position on this. Secondly, for better or worse, I would like everyone to know that our report has gone to the printer.
For better or for worse. Good job.
So it will be in our mailbox. Coming
so,
soon. Mailbox near you. Okay.
Coming soon to a mailbox near you. Nothing on this meeting is going to change our report. But we will, of course, have motions and additions and whatnot at town meeting. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And for those who don't know, Peggy is the chair of the FinCom. So her words are golden. Thank you, Dean, very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to citizen, because I don't see any more questions. And so let's move on to Sven Weber and his motion number 37. Now, Sven, we also should inform the public that number 36 is not going to be moved, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Turned out, I thought it was a simple solution, but it turned out to be more complex. So we rather postpone that and potentially have it next year. So sometimes it's better to wait.
Terrific. Sven, I think I mentioned to you at the public hearing that my brother lived in Switzerland for many years, and you couldn't even turn on your vacuum cleaner in your house on a Sunday without him.
True.
So
not starting Saturday 4 p.m.
Right, so I mean, our world is quite different from other worlds. Okay, Sven is going to be presenting, and I think again each one of these articles are being amended in small but important ways. Go ahead.
Yes, so and I will talk about the adjustments. First of all, thank you for having me. And I also want to clarify, as I also serve on the Public Works Commission, this is my personal private initiative and should not be mixed with my tasks and function as Private Works Commissioner here. So just to be clear here.
Thank you.
I just start, let's say, share the screen, because the first slide gives you kind of the overview of the purpose of this. So the article tries to address the environmental noise and health concerns by the gas-powered leaf blowers that are used all year round here in town. For whatever reason, a lot of people are focusing on the noise because we are hanging this into the noise bylaw, but we have really the three major elements of the environmental impact, the noise impact, and the health concerns. The basic structure is to initially limit the use for spring and fall, the times where actually they're supposed to be used and not all year round, and then phase out the gas-powered handheld leaf blowers over time. Let's touch a little bit on some of the aspects. First, on the environmental aspect. Gas-powered leaf blowers use typically two-stroke engines. They're the absolutely most inefficient engine you can use for anything. Not only they're generating their high amounts of typical greenhouse gases, but they only combust 70% of the gas used, which means 30% is just getting out unburned into the air. California Air Resource Board made a calculation that the pollution from just 1 hour of one leaf blower is equal to driving 1,100 miles by car, which is the distance from here to Jacksonville, Florida. And by the way, California enacted a statewide ban starting 2024 because of this. Because they're burning, not burning 30% of the gas, there are a lot of toxic fumes going into the air. This is here directly from a manufacturing label, warning the people using it. But even for us as citizens, we can smell these toxic fumes that are getting into the air, and it's not only affecting the workers, but everyone close by, in close proximity of these leaf blowers. In addition, let's talk about the noise aspect. These are the most noisy kind of landscape equipment you can imagine, except for kind of chainsaws that sit even a little bit higher here. A lot of people don't understand the decibel scale. What is the difference between 60 decibel and 90? It's actually a 1,000 times difference with respect to the noise power ratio between 60 and 90. And that means you're covering about 10 times more of the neighborhood. It means that about a factor of 30 easier to get the noise through the walls and windows. That's a significant, powerful difference. And that's why we, and a lot of people are super annoyed by the noise. We hear a lot of arguments that the technology is not there. I went through a lot of data. Typically, leaf blowers are classified in 3 categories: category for smaller areas, larger areas with a few trees, and then the whole classification of professional jobs for landscapers. The median of the professional gas leaf blowers sits at about 640 cubic feet per minute. That's the amount of air throughput. So that means 50% of the professional leaf blowers are above that and 50% are below that. The 2 top models on the battery side are the Ego and the Steel that are shown here. The Ego sits with 650, just above that, and the Steel sits with 635, just below that. I also should mention that the runtime of these are 90 minutes and 140 minutes, just to counter some of the arguments we hear from the opponent side. One important part is we also hear that these would drive the costs up of 2 to 3x for using landscapers. I actually made a calculation. The most powerful Ego is actually the cheapest one. If you amortize this over 10 years, assume you have to buy replacement batteries every 3 years, have the most powerful batteries and that fast chargers. That comes to a $1 per workday impact on the investment cost. The Steel, because of the form factor of a backpack, is more expensive, comes about $3 per workday. And I just took the calculation that is today's Concord Bridge letter from the landscapers, where they put a big number out. That number actually has an effect of $4 per workday. So that's far away from a, let's say, threefold of landscaping cost. In addition, they're not using gasoline. In addition, they barely are needed for maintenance because they have less moving parts. So the operating cost of these leaf blowers are significantly lower than gas ones, just to be clear as where we are on the cost. In summary, this article, at least from the supporter side, is seen as better for the climate. We will not have greenhouse gases locally produced. Better for the neighborhood, definitely less noise. And better for workers because there are no toxic fumes anymore. And as of the end of last year, there are now over 200 towns nationwide, and California is one state that already statewide implemented restrictions or bans on this. A little bit on the process. There was a hearing in February. I had actually taken a lot of time sitting down with opponents in March. I spent numerous hours with them. We will propose a few adjustments, which I will explain shortly, on the wording on that to at least accommodate some of the feedback. And actually on Monday, the select board recommended affirmative action on Article 37. What are the adjustments? First of all, I added the definition of handheld leaf blowers so that it's clear what does that mean. Second, the initial phase of the seasonal ban is limited to lots less than 1.5 acres to address that this is limited in areas with higher density and give areas with lower density a little bit more freedom. And then the ban on handheld leaf blowers actually is getting pushed out a few years. It would start now for landscapers in 2028 and for residentials 2030, just to give more time on the migration, understanding that there is cost involved with it and buying something, and that someone that just bought a brand new leaf blower is not forced to just throw this in the trash can immediately. So some moderate adjustments to make it easier for the landscapers and the neighbors. And again, comparison, California starts restricting in 2024. Lexington has this more or less the same structure as proposed, but starting for landscapers in 25 and then for residents in 26. Belmont is starting in 26. More than 200 towns have restrictions. Actually, it's expected by the end of this year that over 400 towns have implemented restrictions. And some landscapers already partially or fully electric, inclusive one landscaper here in Concord. And let's leave it with the word of the manufacturer themselves. Here, steel is not known for being very environmental, but they said, and I read it here, the changes in the environment, along with their impact, drive home the fact that we need to alter the way we live and do business and make it more sustainable. And that's the manufacturer himself. And here, just for everyone to read the language with the changes in bold and strikeouts.
Thank you, Sven, so much. This is incredibly helpful. We have some questions, I think, in the chat box, and I suspect we'll have some personal questions as well. Can we go back to a different highlighting for those managing the thank you so much. I have one quick question. How long does it take the battery held steel, for instance, or the Echo to charge?
Yeah, so you can make an assumption. So it depends on what charger you buy. So I actually personally have the Ego with a high-speed charger and the fastest or largest battery. Takes me about 30 to 40 minutes to get the 80% capacity. If you want to have 100, it takes a little bit longer. The manufacturer says it's about full charge, about 100 minutes. So therefore, in the calculation of the cost, I assumed that you have to have several battery packs, that you cannot just run with one battery pack if you're a landscaper. And that's also in their calculation they put out this morning in the Concord Bridge. And that you charge at least one or two batteries while you're using the other. But you saw the run times. You now have 90 minutes runtime for the one and 140 minutes runtime for the other.
Good. Thank you very much. That was just one of the many issues that came up when this in its original iteration. Janet Miller, and as a question, and then we'll go to chat box.
it's not so much a question, but as a comment, the Climate Action Committee at its inaugural meeting a couple of weeks ago discussed this and did not come to a vote either way. One reason was confusion about what did handheld mean, because a lot of people thought it just meant the kind that didn't include the backpack model. So you might want to clarify that, since by your presentation it appears you do include the backpack model. And the other, one person said, well, it doesn't put out much carbon dioxide, and no, it doesn't. But there's plenty of other reasons, in my opinion, that these things should be banned. Including the emission levels.
Just a comment
But
to
anyway,
that.
it just didn't come to a vote. That's all I
Yeah.
want.
So yes, with the definition, it's clear that backpack is involved. To make that clear, and California calculated that all their gas-powered leaf blowers generate more greenhouse gases and toxic fumes than all the trucks of California together. So that's why they acted effectively.
Yeah, well, certainly the toxic fumes are dreadful. I agree with that. But just what the committee, trying to report what the committee did. Well, didn't do.
Thank you, Janet, so much. And just for clarification, the select board was a 3-2 split. Terry Ackerman and Henry Dane voting against, the rest of the committee, Linda Escobedo, Matt Johnson, and Mary Hartman voting pro. Do we have questions in the chat box?
Yes, we do. Here are a couple. First one, how will Article 37 be enforced? Who will be doing this, and what are the fines? So
the town answered that at the hearing. The town has kind of a bylaw that only talks about enforcement of all other bylaws. It's an enforcement bylaw, so you actually call the police. And you typically expect the police in that sense only showing up and have a nice talk. There is some kind of schedule for different offenses of noise bylaw, and we already have a noise bylaw, so it would just fall under the same structures. I have to come back and see what it says as what the penalty is for repeated stuff. But from all the noise complaints police had in the last years, a simple showing up of an officer and talking was always sufficient. There was no fines, at least from my knowledge, so far enforced.
Thank you.
There's one more, Diane. Shall I give it?
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
It's a comment with an implied question. The date to enforce this seems excessively generous. This commenter says that she's been swimming in blower noise this whole meeting, as well as every day. So the focus on the date of enforcement.
Yeah, so the 28 and 23. Again, if you're trying to find a middle ground, again, we were not being able to just do everything. I can see the argument from the other side that if you're doing it within 2 years, it might be financially problematic. And we are in a high inflation environment, and we have to respect that. So when we put thought about what are the numbers pushing it out to 28, respectively 30, we definitely want to have it in place in 2030 to achieve the goals of the town with respect to environmental goals. The second is it also gives time to see, are there any unintended consequences out of, let's say, Lexington or Belmont with their laws and their things coming in 25 and 26, and having time to potentially adjust between the Lexington enforcing us and saying, oh my God, there were things nobody thought about it. Let's adjust this at a corner. So there were a few things. Am I personally more early? Yes, I can't wait to get this away. But there are good arguments in hearings which you should listen to and should at least acknowledge some of the points there.
Thank you so much. It's such a gracious response. Tanya.
Yes, I want to say thank you, and I want to add a comment that at the public hearing for this, one gentleman claimed that the noise issue was only for the people operating the machinery in terms of causing damage to ears, but as a resident, I can attest along with others that when there is all that noise in the neighborhood, it really is difficult to think in your own house. and equally inconvenient it is for people who are ill or need to rest or whatever. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Lola Caston says in the chat box that if you own a gas blower right now, you could sell it before its value diminishes, get that money and invest in an electric one. Nice suggestion. Are there other questions or comments from people who are? Thank you, Sven, so much. And
Thank you for having me.
The care with which you've negotiated this is impressive and a model for all of us. So thank you very much. Okay, we move next to the Concord Article 21, the light plant solar expansion, Concord CMS, light plant solar expansion. And CMS stands for the Concord Middle School. We throw acronyms around here, but we're not always as clear as we should be. We'll turn to Brian Folds to present this, and also to look at some of the other zoning bylaw changes that you've been looking at. Go ahead, Brian.
Sure. Do you mind if I now have the ability to share?
Good.
Let me pull it up. All right. Can you see the PDF?
We can. Thank you.
Excellent. So the Concord Middle School project is a light plant project. So I want to make that absolutely clear. Some people have thought that this is the school's project. It is not. It is the light plant's opportunity to site solar in town at a good point in the life cycle of a property. So this is a presentation from our public hearing on this article and on this project. There are many town goals that this accomplishes. It accomplishes the net zero drive for the middle school. It accomplishes more in-town solar, and it will start accomplishing our in-town energy storage goal as well. And we have many town committees and reports and so forth to that effect. This is pretty much the same. I'm going to go through this a little quickly because we did a lot of this before. Importantly, the first years in the project, it will increase the average electricity rate by somewhere between 50 cents and $1.70 a month in the year one, but that declines as we go through the years because it's a fixed cost, and it saves us money more and more as our expenses, the rate of our expenses goes up. And so by 2030 to 2035, it will be a net savings to ratepayers, meaning that $1.70 will go down below that to a negative value. And I'll get more into the finances a little later, I think. But here is a rendering of what it will look like. You can see that there is solar on the rooftop. There is solar over all of the parking areas. This solar canopy is designed, you can see this is kind of got a V shape. And all of the arrays go away from the parking areas. That is for snow load and water. So it'll all drain away from the vehicles, ensuring that no one gets dented hoods or other things when snow falls off. It is safe for the kids. It is safe for emergency vehicles in its design and school buses. And gives visibility of the front of the school from the street, though you are looking through the canopy. Here's another rendering that was made by the architects, the overhead plans, some information about the array setup. This is technical details. This is what the energy storage will look like. These are the batteries. There will be a 2 megawatt inverter with a 4 megawatt hour battery pack, allowing us to make some of this power that's generated dispatchable. And you'll see here in the capital cost that we are going to be using a handout to change the motion of the article to request $7.5 million, not the printed $13 million in the warrant. This is because we have changed the design to downscale the size of the battery pack. Also, we got more information from our consultants at Solar Design Associates that design these projects about market rates for these. And that 13 million was very, very padded and cautious value when it was first proposed back in November. Let's see, there's many carbon benefits. There's peak mitigation and expenses. There's arbitration of energy contracts that all provide financial value to the light plant. All of the capital and maintenance related to this array and storage would be a light plant expense. It would not be a school expense. So there is really, other than use of their property and working with the schools on access, there is no financial obligation, and there will be a memo to go through the details about that arrangement. Here's a breakdown of the impact to ratepayers. One important thing that came out in the FinCom hearing is the funding from ARPA funds looks to be redirected towards other efforts in town. So that was $500,000 in this calculation. So this bar will go up a little bit, but still it's going from something like 50 cents to maybe something like just under $1 as first year impact. So if you take this whole set and raise it up just so that reaches there, you'll find that we reach a positive value for the project in the 2030s, early 2030s. There's resiliency benefits. Now this array and storage is designed to help mitigate expenses primarily, but we are looking at the potential of being able to island in case of a storm or a weather event, such that we could have the middle school powered should the grid go down in Concord. But this is not the primary purpose of this array. So we are looking to do that as an extra function and so forth. So let me get through the rest. So this also being visible, as Dean mentioned, we've got 2 other large utility scale arrays. People can see the landfill from Route 2 and that array, and they can see they can't see the bigger array, which is off near the Acton Concord line, that is our WR Grace property. And so this will be where the students are going to school every day, where their parents are going. There'll be great education benefits, awareness benefits, that are not captured in the finances or the carbon calculations. And there was some pushback on use of environmental justice in this slide. The way that I view environmental justice is Concord is not putting our needs off onto another community to burden the placement of these arrays and the land that it takes, and we are actually providing our own power and not pushing off maybe some unwanted parts of this project and undesirable ways of designing this project onto another community. So that's how I view that topic. And the rest are just some photographic examples of other arrays. You can see the energy storage here, the arrays that are designed to capture on the building and the parking lot. But I'm going to stop sharing and take questions to save time.
Okay, Diane, I do have a question from the chat box to get us started. The question I have, there are actually a couple. First one I have is this solar installation will be paid by electric ratepayers. How does that group of customers differ from property taxpayers?
Sure. The form of payment, if you pay your property taxes, you're you're paying to support, say, the school district or the town. When you pay your electric bill, you're paying for that enterprise fund, which really is a government-owned business. That's how ratepayers differentiate from taxpayers. There is a very small percentage of people who receive power that are not in Concord, or that pay taxes that don't get Concord Light. So I know it's a handful of houses and people, but the distribution grid and the taxable homes are not exactly the same. They are extremely close, 99%, but there is a small difference there in who they are. That's how we got qualified for green communities way back when.
Okay, there's one other question in the chat box, and I see that Peggy has her hand up from the chat. The Climate Action Committee voted to support Article 21. Janet, if you are available, can you tell us why the Climate Action Committee voted to support Article 21?
Sure. It increases the renewable energy in town of Concord, and everything that Brian has said, I personally agree with, and I think the committee clearly there was no disagreement whatsoever in supporting this.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I actually said thank you to Brian, but I was muted. So Brian, thank you for that very clear and helpful presentation. Peggy.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to expand a little on Brian's response in terms of electric payers, and this is just me, former CMLP. There are things that CMLP can do that differentiate ratepayers for taxes versus the Light Board. So the Light Board has a more aggressive plan to assist needy residents, elders, etc., on rates, which we can't do legally through taxes. So that's a plus. The other difference is that we have some very large nonprofits in town, both educational and medical, and they pay into our rate base, but not our tax base. So it's not as even as you see. But I think what Brian's talking about is very it's excellent.
Thank you, Peggy. That's helpful.
And I know the difficulties of moving things through the Light Board.
Okay, Lola, you have written a very articulate question in the chat box. Would you be willing to come online and express it? See, I don't see that happening. So
there we go.
Oh, there.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I've got the sunlight on this. My question is that since the CMS whole project has overrun its budget and 40% of the town disagreed with giving them more money, which is a fair fraction for Concord to vote against an education bill. Wouldn't it be smart for the Light Board to make this funding as inexpensive as possible? And if that's the case, canopied solar is the most expensive kind of solar you can arrange for. Concord has brownfields. You get a government rebate, a federal rebate if you put the solar on those. It's not a very long, I know you lose something in transmission, but it's a very short transmission from nuclear metals to the middle school site. Why can't we put ground solar on other places and get more solar power for our tax dollars, for our money that we're spending in this town? Why don't we do it where it's most efficient rather than say, oh, it has to be right on the middle school property?
Thank
Sure.
you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this question came up at the public forum. It is accurate to say that if we built a ground-mounted solar array here in Concord, that it would be less expensive than this project. The problem there is we've repeatedly voted to protect our trees and to protect our agriculture land, and land is finite. So we do contract for projects that are ground mounted in other areas, and that is what this project is compared to on a cost basis. But those are outside of our substation. The cost to do canopy is greater than that of a rooftop, and that is greater than that to do on the ground. But in-town projects, first factor is we don't think we could, there's always this suggestion, well, you can do it cheaper. Well, yeah, but then when that project comes up, there's always questions about, the trees or agricultural use or other conflicting needs. The other thing is that the nuclear metals, I hope that we do that as well. That would be additional, not and or. So, the nuclear metals site is a great location for us to do that. And in fact, the W.R. Gray site, where we did clear some forest to do that over 2 hills, that's a former Superfund area that the town took over. So we do that. We do focus on trying to do these arrays in dual land use, where the land can have 2 purposes, either a building that is underneath it, which people can use and occupy, or a canopy, because once you do a ground mounted array, that land is solely dedicated to solar. And if any of us have looked at the prices of land in Concord, they're not cheap. So it's a value for us to do these
But
more.
why don't we do the brownfields first? Many of us may not be in town in 2030 to start reaping the benefits of this. Right?
Oh, this is going to benefit us for quite a while. This is the difference in this project is the other 2 projects were done with a third-party installer. So we had to do a power purchase agreement with those companies, have them do the installation, and they took a profit margin. And at the end of that contract, we have to either buy them out or they take their equipment and go home. This project is going to last for a long time and something that we can maintain and can add value in later years. Now, are we going to get, if you want to say that, $12 or $15 in year 1, then the PPA is more valuable, but that PPA is going to be for 20 years. This project's going to be for 20 plus years. And over the life cycle, this is a much better value than doing a ground mounted outside of the substation.
Thank you so much. This has been such a helpful back and forth and discussion. Stefan Bader has a question in the chat box. Stefan, do you want to ask? And then we have to move on. So if you
Okay.
have that question.
I thought I saw one slide that said it would not increase resiliency. I didn't understand why you said not. And then
I was a little confused too. No resiliency benefits, and then you explained resiliency. So go ahead.
Yeah, it comes down to how we design the switchgear. So there is a very expensive piece of equipment that's a grid infrastructure equipment that where the solar, the battery, and the building all come in and connect to the greater distribution grid. And that is being designed by yet another set of consultants, and they haven't come back to us on how those protections will work. So to tell us whether or not we could isolate the building and use the battery to run the building or not. So I hope that we design it such that we can get resiliency benefits, but again, the primary goal of this project is cost reduction for in-town solar.
And also, wasn't there a slide that showed use and discharge cycles that suggested you would charge at night? I didn't understand that.
Yes, we would. So the battery has value in charging and reducing our morning peak. So we would use the energy produced by the array to charge the battery such that we go through our evening peak, which is greater, to reduce that peak. But we could also use the midnight cheap energy to charge the battery and to discharge it into that morning energy, which is a bit more expensive. That's the energy arbitrage that we were discussing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have one last comment from Dinos.
Sure, I'll just jump in here and second what Lola was saying about ground mounts. I think Brian eloquently made the case for using the W.R. Grace property, but not doing this. He's argued that this project has educational value. It would seem that if you're teaching the kids about NPVs, this would give them an opportunity to analyze a negative NPV in ways to lose money. I don't think that's what we want to be teaching our kids. I think in their public forum, you mentioned that, gee, the alternative to doing this was cutting down the trees in the Walden Woods. I don't think that was a serious answer, Brian, and you know it. I think that we can, again, look at the W.R. Grace. We can look at the StarMed plant. We can also look outside of town where there's low value land that isn't developable into luxury townhomes like on Forest Ridge Road next to the substation that the CMAP has. There's a lot of trees there that were just knocked down by a developer to turn into luxury townhomes.
Yep.
I mean, so what's a few more trees there? It's not a conservation land or anything. It's just property. So but we've got to really take a holistic view and look at ways to save the town money and take advantage of opportunities where we can. There is low-cost solar opportunity out there. This project just isn't it. And I think you made the case very clearly that if you look at the NPVs for the solar part of the project, this is not something that we should be doing at this site. Energy is fungible, carbon is fungible. There's no point to building this specifically at the middle school where the canopies, besides being expensive, are also somewhat unsightly. And I think we should really keep our mind open to the best ways to site our solar projects and to fulfill our carbon goals. Thank you.
Yes, I don't agree that there are better locations in town, but this is the project in front of us. We have to get another over 10 megawatts of solar generation and another 56 megawatt hours of energy storage built in town. That is going to take a lot of these other sites as well. The 2011 Solar Siting Committee focused on clearing trees around the wells. The big issue I have with the comparison of a developer clearing for a property for buildings and the town building a solar array is going through town meeting. You know, Tanya's here. I've seen Tanya at many town meetings amend articles to protect trees. And a developer doesn't have to go through that process. So that isn't really a fair comparison, but I get your point. And I do agree with your point that there is potentially a better spot to start, but this is the project we have in front of us. And I think this does bring good value. I don't like the painting of this as a value losing project, because I think it's a value losing project.
It's buying a Tesla when a Prius gets the job done basically for half the money.
I again disagree with that, but I you know, I can understand your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a thoughtful and again very gracious exchange of ideas. Is there another comment or question from those people gathered? Carlin, do you have any more questions in the chat box?
I don't see anything else in the chat box at the moment. A comment from Stephen Bader saying, let's not make the perfect be the enemy of the good, but that's it.
Thank you, Stefan, for that final comment. And Brian, thank you for all that you're doing. And Dinos and everyone who's commented, thank you. And Lola and Peggy for your thoughts and your considerations. Okay, now we're on to the Concord Public Schools. I want to explain that we are not discussing today the high school budget because there's been no public conflict between the FinCom's goal and the high school budget. However, in the Concord Public Schools, there has been some concern. And so we have asked Laurie Hunter and Alexa Anderson, who's the chair of the Concord Public Schools, and Peggy Briggs from FinCom to discuss, first of all, Article 17, which is the Concord Public School budget. Not their capital budget, but their regular budget. And my last understanding was it was $5,850 over the FinCom goals. FinCom had 2 votes on this, and the first vote, and Peggy, correct me if I do this improperly, but my notes tell me that the first vote was against supporting this budget, and the second vote was, okay, if we go down and look at our suggested budget, can we support the public school budget given our goals? And the answer was yes. And these were both close votes. So let's start with Laurie and
Can I,
go ahead.
sorry.
Is that wrong?
A quick correction, okay.
Good.
The first motion in the Finance Committee was to approve the CPS budget at the number proposed by the school committee.
Right.
That did not pass. It tied at 7-7. We had 1 member missing. It tied at 7-7, so it did not prevail.
That's right.
So it's kind of a fine line, but I don't want to say it. It didn't pass. It didn't lose either. It illustrated the closeness and honestly, the concern of the Finance Committee to provide funding for the schools, but at the same time, half the members were very concerned about the overall budget. So following that motion, a second motion was made it's a little complicated, but basically to move forward with a recommendation at the Finance Committee guideline.
Right.
Which is a lower number. I think it's more like 700,000 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
They're moving around.
I thought it was. Go ahead.
And that passed 8-6. Right. 1 member of the committee, that's me, changed their mind. So it didn't tie again at 7-7 and fail. It passed at the Finance Committee guideline. And the point of that, in my mind, the point of that vote was, since the committee was so divided, equally divided, that only by passing a motion at the FinCom guideline would there be any discussion at town meeting representing half the board. So what we will be doing is providing a motion. So the school committee will move their budget, have a discussion. The Finance Committee will move to amend that budget, I believe, unless this changes, we still have another meeting. But unless that changes, we will move to amend that motion to the guideline, and then town meeting will have a discussion over the guideline budget, yay or nay, to amend the main motion, and then we'll go from there. So we have
clarification. That's really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
So let's have Laurie and Alexa. I think, Alexa, are you going to share your screen? I think.
Yes, but I lost my connection and reconnected, so I don't think I have. Oh, I do have. I have it. I've got my permissions. They're back. Let's see. Share. Is that working?
That's working.
Yeah. All right. So, Lori, do you want to start?
Laurie, welcome, and Alexa, welcome. Here we go. Alexa Anderson-Lascan is the chair of the Concord Public Schools, and Laurie Hunter is our superintendent of schools.
Great. Thanks, everybody. So this is a high-level view of the CPS budget that's been proposed and recommended by me to the school committee and subsequently supported.
I think I'm sharing the wrong one, Lori. This is not the updated one. But you can keep going.
You want me to share? I've got them right here.
Sure.
Our technical.
No, it's me. I have 2 versions up.
Well, if Laurie, she needs to be co-chair. I want to thank right now.
I actually, I can get it. Hold on. Let me see that.
Linda Ziffrin and Nancy Confrey are in the background managing all this with such poise. So this is a chance to thank them. And if you want to make Laurie a co-chair in case Alexa can't find it, that might.
I can find it. Just a disaster. Let's see.
Unless I have it. Let me just find the right co-chair or find the right screen share to use.
Am I even still sharing?
No, you're not.
Good, okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Perfect, Laurie. Thank you.
Okay.
You can skip the first two.
Right, because we had a couple high school in here in case anyone wanted to hear that. And we are clear that you want to focus on the CPS budget, which makes sense. So the budget that we've proposed and been approved by the school committee is that $45,147,000 number. It's a 4.7 increase over FY23. That is a level service budget. And I think if there's one message we want to keep stressing, that is level service in a pretty challenging environment in the schools right now, which we'll talk about why in a moment. That is how we're attempting to just maintain. There's no big asks there for new programming or new initiatives. It's to just hold on to what we are currently providing to kids. So as Peggy noted, the FinCom did not support the budget. Select Board subsequently also voted not to support it. And as Peggy noted, we're expecting adjustments to happen at town meeting based on that. A little bit about the budget process on the school side. My original recommendation to the school committee was a budget at a little over 5%. In March, we did some work to look at where we had options to lower that number. We were able to identify transportation cost reductions for special needs students through the Case Collaborative provider that services us there. And then we decided that my office was comfortable recommending another dip into circuit breaker, which is our special education tuition subsidies from the state, essentially a bit of a stabilization fund, to go a little deeper into using those reserves to try to work and close this delta with the FinCom guideline. So the numbers we're running right now, the original delta was 735,000 when the budget was at 5%. Now that it's at 4.7, it's 585,000.
Thank you. That was the number I thought that we were using.
Yeah, that is the number. There were multiple meetings between November and March. The FinCom guideline of 3.3 was the original guideline presented in November, and that has not changed since then. So just in terms of why the needs are what they are this year, it's been really challenging times in the schools for the last 3 years, as everyone easily understands. What I'm not sure everyone understands, although I sense growing understanding and mixed level of how to accomplish it. I guess that's what I'm starting to feel is the tension. The pandemic had incredible disruption to our kids, either being at home, being hybrid, and then reacclimating over the last year to the schools and being out back with their peers. So we've got kids now who are graduating from CCHS in a month or two, and this is their only non-COVID year. We've got kids where they're in 9th grade now, their entire middle school career was impacted by COVID and all those disruptions. So the impact is significant, even in a community like this where parents have been such amazing partners with us. The impact's certainly going to be academic and kids, keeping pace with the normal curriculum that we would offer, skill sets being a little more sporadic or disjointed than they typically would be. and making sure we're on track to cover everything that they need to be able to do successfully to accomplish what's next for them. We had a mental health crisis secondarily prior to the pandemic. The acuteness of that has become hard to describe, frankly. We have aggregate needs of kids with anxiety and depression and other challenges to the tune of almost 25% that shows in our data. And when we say, you know, significant anxiety, depression, even self-harm thoughts, those are not numbers we're going to dismiss or not take seriously. It's incredibly important that we do address those needs. So we have an aggregate issue there. We have acute issues there. And the kids that become acute, the services and the system is completely broken. And the schools are now having to provide generic and aggregate social emotional education, training, skill development, all the way to acute provisions when kids are in full-blown crisis, sometimes of life-threatening natures. And that's nothing we can walk away from, and has taxed us greatly, both in terms of our fiscal abilities. It's expensive to do what we need to do, sometimes out of district, sometimes new curriculum in the classroom of social emotional kinds. You know, our own resilience over these years is, you know, something we're digging deep to do right by kids on. And that's just going to be really important that continue. There's no quick fix here. It's going to take us years to recuperate. That's becoming very clear. The third factor is about just the inflation and utility costs that have gone up. Really 4.7% in an environment like this means we have offset some of that, despite other triggers that had to be accomplished. So I just think it's worth naming that. I think within all of this, those factors, the learning loss and mental health crisis, translate to special needs and special education demands that we are now providing much more thoroughly in-house. Kids are able to stay with us, not go to out-of-district placements nearly as often, for great cost savings, I have to say. And that demand is also acute in a way that wasn't always present before, despite our in-house ability to do it more cost effectively. And then, you know, random things, the state permits the out-of-district settings to increase 14% in 1 year, and we're also trying to absorb that increase. So again, this is a level service budget while we meet the needs of our kids, not any great ask beyond that. 3.3 is not something we could accomplish level service with this year. 4.7 is a high number in my tenure. It is not an uncommon number in the decade previous to that. So just think it's worth noting that other districts around us were, you know, all tracking with each other because the needs are compelling in every district right now. It's not unusual to see 6 and 8% asks. So somehow we were proud to get it under 5, and we're still having the conversation. So I guess that's the high level view on CPS budget before we go on to any of the other articles. I assume, Diane, you want to do one at a time?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Laurie, so much.
Sure.
So let's go back to our to everyone that's I suspect there will be a question about what sort of pressures the Best Western edition is placing on budgetary constraints and whether those are taken into consideration by your budget projections at this point.
So the short version of that, March 13th, the shelter opened up with 28 long-term stay families placed there. 25 of them have school-age kids. The other 3 have kids younger than school age, but will age in. We can see a few already for the fall. Our obligation to those families is to provide school support, whether it be in Concord or if they were in a Massachusetts school, the law says they have a right to transportation back to their district of origin where they were placed prior. So of those families and children, we have 31 kids. 22 of them are being transported back to their home district school of origin. We have an obligation to a 50% cost share on that per federal law. I'm guessing you can all tell that would add up fairly quickly without me telling you that. The other 9 have enrolled in the schools, and they're everywhere from kindergarten through, I guess, 10th grade. What we are naming already is a significant English language learner need. Right now, we're trying to accomplish it with our current staff. I don't see that holding into the next year. We've hired a family coordinator to liaise between the schools and the shelter, and absorbing costs on all of this, including the transportation. In the FY23 budget, there's absolutely no provision for it right now in FY24. I'm in ongoing discussions with the state reps, DESE, Department of Housing and Development. I meet with them again today at 1 o'clock. We have a standing Friday meeting. Governor Hewley's package that just passed the supplemental budget has funds appropriated to support districts that shelters are opening up in for all the reasons I just named. That money has not been delegated, determined, no process in place. Our biggest concern, we do have faith there will be money coming. Our biggest concern is the transportation piece, which right now we're estimating to run at just what the kids we're talking about, and there's room for more families at the shelter. They're not at capacity for long-term stays. We're already estimating between approximately $300,000 to $400,000 next year of money going out from the budgets, both CPS and the high school. And if transportation reimbursement doesn't happen in a timely way, we're going to have a major problem. So that's the advocacy work I'm doing, is that while they may be looking at 100% reimbursement, if it's not done efficiently and timely, for us to front that kind of money without, with a year's delay is going to be fairly catastrophic. So the shelter's not included in any of this is the short answer. That was my longer explanation.
Thank you very much. This is again, I'm exercising the prerogative of the chair to ask one more question. Are ARPA funds available for this? And might they be?
So ARPA is the town's version of COVID money.
I know.
We have not had any conversations with the town about ARPA being part of this
I
plan.
wonder if they could serve as a short-term kind of borrowing for free.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a cash flow problem. So I see why you say that. Yeah.
Are there questions in the chat box?
Well, right now, no, you asked the one that I had seen there. Something came up from Peggy Wargelen. She actually has, looks like 3 questions. Do you want to have her ask them, or do you want me to go take them one by one, Diane? What's your pleasure?
Whatever, it's up to you. And if Peggy wants to come online, that's fantastic. If not, Carlin, why don't you ask them?
I'm happy to be verbal, no camera today.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I had some questions for Peggy Briggs. I guess I wondered, how did the FinCom arrive at the 3.3% increase guideline value for the CPS budget?
Okay, Peggy, why don't you pop into the screen, because we're going to be doing that anyway. That's going to be lots of discussion.
I'm here. I don't know how to pop in.
Well, I know that I was sending.
I also have to do that.
No, no, it's not good today. Sorry.
Not you, Peggy. We're talking, not you, Peggy Wargelen. We're talking about Peggy Briggs. Go ahead.
So, the Finance Committee, in determining the guidelines, we tried to do some kind of approximation of what I'd call ability to pay. We looked at, household income growth, both in the region, nationally, other expenses and inflation, etc. And we set guidelines for each of the budgeting entities: the town, the high school, and the middle school. And we, in all fairness, set those guidelines prior to receiving the ask from the different budgeting entities. The town and the high school were able to come in and meet the Finance Committee guideline, but I think Lori and Alexa have done an excellent job explaining the multiple situations in the CPS, the public school. And just reminding everyone, this comes on the tail of the positive vote for the middle school. It's apples and oranges, and I know that, but the finance committee is concerned about the overall tax impact on the citizens of Concord. So it's not a it's part of the overall equation. Anyway, so we have met, so that's how, and you will be receiving your finance committee report. It's gone to print. You'll be getting it shortly in the mail. And it does explain, I think in pretty good detail, what we looked at in terms of trying to balance, needs and affordability. And, this year we're just kind of stuck. And the outlook in the next couple of years, which is also presented in the finance committee report, does not look any better. In fact, it looks worse. So, we're really trying to tighten the belt. I think, as I said earlier, the finance committee is divided right down the middle in terms of supporting the CPS budget, supporting the finance guidelines. So I can only say that it's a very tough decision. That's it. I mean, I'll just start rambling if I keep going. So I'm going to.
Okay, so I will take away my second question, because I thought that the town exceeded their recommendation, but they got approval really easily. So I must have been misinformed. But the last
they changed, they altered their budget to meet the guideline.
I see. Okay, the last one then, the CPS budget as a share of the overall Concord budget is at its lowest since 2007. So I wonder why this is considered unsustainable when it's actually lower as a percentage of the overall budget than it's been.
I don't have all my numbers in front of me, so I'm going to pass on that question.
Okay, I'll try to find it. If I find it, I'll mail it to somebody.
I appreciate that. I've got my, don't have all the
Sure.
in front of me.
Well, thank you, Peggy. That is a very helpful commentary. I noticed we also have Cynthia Rainey and Court Booth on the call. If they have anything they'd like to add or say, they are both school committee members and more than welcome to comment. Alexa, do you have anything you would like to add in the meantime?
I don't. I think Lori did an excellent job of framing why we believe this budget is efficient and reasonable. So yeah, that's we voted on it. We've taken several votes on the budget, and I think all of our budget votes have passed 5-0 on this. So we believe this is the appropriate budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you very much. For those who don't know, it's not unimportant to say that the FinCom it can suggest a certain level and can vote against a particular budget, but they do not have a capacity to stop a budget from going through at a higher level than their suggestion. And it will really be up to the town and the vote at the school at the actual meeting itself. I also wanted to say that if you look in your warrant, you will see that items number 17 has been, which is the one we're talking about right now, was voted yes by the select board on Monday, 3-1, Henry Dane being the holdout. So 8-6 from the FinCom, 3-1 from the select board. And I don't think Linda had joined the call just then, so it may really have been 4-1. Okay, on to the next item. If we don't see any questions.
Okay, I'm gonna mail the percentage of the budgets to you if you care to see it now, or if it's too late. I understand.
No, put it in the chat box maybe.
Oh, okay.
And then
The
everyone,
file, can I upload a file?
I can't answer that. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I don't think I can, but I will, I
Peggy,
will.
Peggy, you can take a screenshot of it
Oh,
and then upload the screenshot.
oh, cool. Okay, I got that. Let's see. I'm so sorry. Let me,
that's okay. Well, while you're working on that, let's go to,
Diane,
yes,
I'm
Peggy.
sorry, it's
No,
Peggy.
that's no sorry to be had. What's up?
Sure. Could you just clarify your comment about the select board's vote?
Yes, I can. They voted Monday night, 3-1 in favor of of Article 17, the Concord Public School budget.
So they changed their vote. I believe they had voted in favor of the guideline number 3-1. Did they change their vote to vote in favor of the CPS number?
I thought that's what they were voting, Peggy, and if I'm wrong, will correct me at the next hearing on Thursday. I thought they were voting for Article 17 as it stands, and I can't check my notes. I'm checking my notes, and I didn't hear that was the discussion. So,
okay, dokes. That's fine.
I could be wrong.
Okay, so could I.
Yeah,
Alexa or Lori, do either of you want to weigh in on this?
I thought you were correct, Peggy Briggs, but I was hearing things secondhand, admittedly.
Well,
I did watch them vote to support the guideline almost, 2 weeks ago. I don't know anything about this past week.
Right.
All right.
I saw the 3-1 in favor of the guideline number. It was a couple weeks ago, Lori. I did not watch this Monday. So if they re-voted or revised,
well, that vote was just on Monday night. So
right. Okay.
So
that is a change.
Okay.
We'll have to check. I know we don't have anybody here on the call who's on the select board, but we'll figure that out and let everybody know the next Thursday on that warrant review.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the Concord Public School capital budget, item number 18, there has been a change in that. And so maybe, I think a little bit, so maybe somebody could present that particular item and we'll go from there.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Sorry, my slides went back to the beginning.
I meant to say number 18, not 38. I apologize. 18.
18. So the way it reads in the warrant is for a $900,000 amount toward capital projects in the CPS schools. We always have worked with the town manager. This is within the town manager's budget. 900,000 has been a pretty standing number for the last few years. And then the school committee in my office worked to allocate where that 900,000 will go. Initially, we had proposed that the 900,000 be used for some moderate work at Thoreau and dock repairs and a master plan for the campus over there, which has been through a lot with the fire and such. There's always a standing amount of 50,000 each for Peabody and Sanborn. And the bulk of the money, you can see that's a significant number for sure, was to look at heat pumps going in over the preschool here at Ripley, where I am right now. That is coming off of a Green Communities grant that was written by one of the former sustainability directors for the town of Concord to put the heat pumps in. What subsequently happened after receiving the grant was the infrastructure in Ripley won't support the heat pumps without a significant electrical upgrade, very significant. And that's what most of that money is towards. So after a lot of discussion and feedback over the last months, my office proposed a new plan to the school committee 2 weeks ago that will be talked about this coming Wednesday, which you can see was a reduction in the number considerably, with a new approach towards the sustainability parts. This is the second of 2 years in a row where we've proposed upgrades based on documents that were done jointly with the town. Oh, they always have been, but they're a year or two old. Technology changes. It takes a while for us to get it into the plan. and costs are not insignificant. And there's just been question over it's the right thing at the right time for the right money. And we've just sort of been stuck in some, limbo. So we've pulled out all the sustainability parts right now while we think it's a town discussion at this point, given the ups and downs of it. And so this proposal is much simpler in terms of basic asks just to maintain proactively, hopefully, not just all reactively, maintenance, safety, et cetera. And you can see it's a list of sidewalk and parking lot repairs. We did add a piece there at Thoreau to look at dry fire suppression. I don't know if everybody's heard the saga of Thoreau. The fire happened in the attic over the 1994 wing when a heater that was up there to prevent pipes from freezing in the winter in June a couple of years ago caught fire because of the excessive heat. It's a wide open attic there, not well insulated, not contained. The insurance company, we spent almost a full year repairing that with needs for modular classrooms, et cetera, great disruption. That all got put back together a year ago. And in February, on that really, really, really record cold night, the pipe burst in that same attic. And we had two of the same classrooms then flood with the pipe burst in a stunning deja vu moment of that same classroom needing to be repaired. So we have decided not to do the same thing for the third time, and we would want to look at what other options we can put in the attic to be more proactive for issues there. Otherwise, it's pretty basic. We are looking maybe to expand the Thoreau playground. We had done some work there, so it's more accessible, and that plan had a second phase drafted that we want to visit now. And so for the total request dropping from 900,000 to 495, and the school committee is going to discuss that Wednesday. They've discussed it once, but not voted approval. Should the 495 be approved, there'd be a change made on the floor of town meeting. So that takes care of the ask.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have on the capital plan.
Thank you very much. Are there comments or questions on that capital plan? Peggy, I presume you're pleased with the decrease.
We're always pleased with the decrease. The Finance Committee has not yet taken a position. We do another meeting before town meeting, so we'll probably take a look at it at that point. I appreciate the school committee's effort. It's a little bit of apples and oranges, but it's also money, and money is money. So we really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see we have some questions. Brian, when you want to start us?
Sure. I have a strong concern about the school committee's approach to sustainability, that change you mentioned, in that sustainability is a town effort, not a school effort. And so they should fund any sustainability efforts the school do. That's not how we do sustainability well. The reason is that an optional extra. It's not plug solar array onto something and call it sustainable. As we saw with the middle school, it's about design, thinking from the beginning. And that's my concern, is that this change in approach to the finances will change the approach to projects, and that we won't put sustainability into an assumed thing that we're doing at the very beginning, which designs a more effective, less costly project, because we're saying that value of sustainability is the town's problem and the schools are just solely focused on education. So I wanted to express that concern. I don't think that's your intent. So I don't want to feel defensive about this, but I just want to make sure that you understand sustainability. The design process is where you find a lot of low cost, good decisions that are sustainable and lower operating costs. And if we go with the approach that we're only going to do sustainability when the town funds it through their budget, then only optional extras, which are more expensive, tend to work. So that's my concern with that change. And I just needed to express that somewhere. this happened to be the moment. So thank you.
So much, Brian. And Laurie and our Alexa, do you have something you'd like to, would you like to respond to that comment?
I mean, I will quick, and then I'm going to let Alexa go. I think Brian knows well enough because he's on our sustainability committee, and a number of you are. It's not an either or by any means. And certainly when I say it's a town discussion, I mean only at the highest level of high cost, and trying to help us figure out the fiscal side of the discussion, because we keep getting caught in that. It happens with the electric buses too. We certainly aren't not going to be really working towards those goals. There just seems to be another step that needs to happen somewhere along the way. So I don't know if Alexa wants to say that better or differently.
Certainly not better, but maybe to augment. Yeah, so for me, I see this as just a way to better strengthen our partnership with the town. I think I would rather see the school districts not just holding hands with the town, but like in a full embrace together as we sort of tackle these larger projects that do tend to be, as Brian said, sort of things that take a lot of planning and cost a lot of money. What we have seen in a lot of neighboring communities are much larger 20, 30, 50-year sort of long-range plans around sustainability that are, again, sort of holistic, big picture kinds of things. That's sort of, I think, what we're trying to achieve here, to sort of not force the hand, but say, you know, this is how we think it's best accomplished moving forward.
Thank you so much. I see Cynthia Rainey. Janet, I'm going to call on Cynthia first. We have about 4 minutes left. We started 2 minutes late, so we have 4 minutes left. And Cynthia, you have a comment.
So I just wanted to comment on the select board did not revote the Concord Public School budget. I contacted Mary Hartman.
Oh, good.
Yep. I just wanted to make that clear today. Thanks. That's all.
Okay, I have in my records 310 an abstention, so obviously I'm wrong. Thank you.
What's the vote at the prior meeting?
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia. Janet Miller.
Sorry, I just need to unmute myself. I just wanted to know what happened with the Ripley project. I know the infrastructure suddenly, the cost ballooned, but I don't know why. Can you explain that at all? Or is it so complicated that you don't have time?
And I'm not going to profess to understand the details. It's the electrical upgrade that was required here is all that cost. And it was so excessive, we've decided to hold off.
So the cumulative cost became unbearable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Carlin, last comment for us.
This is going back to Article 17. Linda and Peggy both have the chart available for a screen share. So when you want to, that's available to be seen.
Okay, let's put it up quickly. That would be fantastic.
Peggy, Peggy, do you want to do it, or you want?
I would have to be made a co-host. It won't let me do it. So if you're in there, go for it.
Okie doke. Sorry.
So Peggy, you want to narrate this so people can see?
Oh, sure. I mean, I guess this is something that I guess the town went to electronic budget books in 2007. And so Carlin actually went and dug in there and got the actual numbers of the budgets and figured out the percentage. And so you can see in 2007, the Concord Public Schools budget was 38.4% of the overall, and we're now down to 34.2%. So it's like it's been going down, and I guess I would like to point that out and say to FinCom, you know, why are you pushing this particular budget so much? I mean, I watched people in one FinCom meeting, digging down in the budget for 20 minutes, trying to find something to cut, when 85 or 86% of the budget is mandated either by state or federal law or by union contract, and they just couldn't find anything to cut. And they were agreeing that this was a transparent, really clear, well done budget, but they still were pushing. And I see that it's not even stable. It's going down. So that's my comment.
Peggy, thank you. Data is always important in informing any discussion, is it not? Well, we've run out of time, and I don't see under any other hands raised. And Carlin, there's nothing else in the chat box?
No, nothing at this point.
Okay. So I want to thank Carlin for managing the chat box. I want to thank our guests, Alexa, Laurie, Peggy Briggs, incredibly for being with us throughout this time period in terms of commenting from FinCom's perspective. All the people who also commented and added to our discussion. And I want to thank Linda Zifrin, and I want to thank Nancy Confrey, who've been managing this whole thing in the background. This will be posted on the League of Women Voters website. And please encourage people who have questions to observe it, to read it. To see it. One of the things I've noticed is that each of these presentations in one way or another is quite different than the public hearings. So it really is valuable to inform people and keep them up to date on where we stand right now. I hope we see everyone who's here on the 13th, Thursday from 9:30 to 11:30 to look at the enterprise funds and the planning board offerings. And I also want to and Sven, I want to thank Sven and Dean Banfield for their presentations as well. So we will see you all on Thursday, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.